He walked onto a commercial airplane like any normal passenger. No mask. No weapon in sight. No sign that history was about to be made. But a few hours later, he would jump into a stormy night, from 10,000 feet in the air, carrying $200,000 in cash. And he would disappear forever. This is not a movie. This really happened. And to this day, no one knows who D.B. Cooper was. Welcome to Weird and Scary Encounters, and with today's story of D.B. Cooper. It was November 24, 1971, the day before Thanksgiving. Airports were busy. Families were traveling. Businessmen rushed to catch flights home. At Portland International Airport, a quiet man bought a one-way ticket to Seattle. He paid in cash. His name on the ticket was Dan Cooper. He was described as calm, polite, and well-dressed. Dark suit, white shirt, black tie. Nothing about him stood out. Flight 305 was a short trip, only about 30 minutes in the air. Cooper took seat 18C near the back of the plane. He ordered a bourbon and soda. He smoked cigarettes. And he waited. Shortly after takeoff, Cooper leaned forward and handed a small note to a flight attendant. At first, she thought it was a phone number. She placed it in her pocket without reading it. Cooper quietly spoke, "Miss, you should read that. I have a bomb." Her smile disappeared. She opened the note. Inside, it clearly said, "I have a bomb in my briefcase." Her hands began to shake. She sat beside him, just as he calmly requested. Cooper opened his briefcase slightly. Inside were red cylinders, wires, and batteries. It looked real. Very real. Cooper didn't shout. He didn't threaten. He spoke slowly and clearly. He demanded $200,000 in cash, for parachutes, and a fuel truck waiting in Seattle. No negotiations. No tricks. He told her exactly how the money should be packed. He even specified the bill denominations. Pilot was informed. Air traffic control was contacted. And suddenly, what started as a normal flight became a national emergency. The plane began circling above Seattle for nearly 2 hours. Military jets followed at a distance. Passengers had no idea what was happening. They were told there was a minor delay. Cooper remained calm. He drank another bourbon. He tipped the flight attendants. He thanked them. On the ground, the FBI rushed to collect the ransom money. Banks emptied their vaults. Serial numbers were recorded on every single bill. The parachutes were prepared. Everything Cooper asked for was being delivered, because there was no other choice. When the plane finally landed, the runway lights were glowing in the darkness. The money was brought on board. The parachutes followed. Cooper inspected everything carefully. Then he did something unexpected. He released all 36 passengers. Every single one walked away safely. Only the cockpit crew and 2 flight attendants remained. Now the real mystery was about to begin. With the passengers gone, the cabin felt empty and silent. Only 5 people remained on board. The cockpit crew, 2 flight attendants, and Cooper. He immediately began giving detailed instructions. He wanted the plane to fly toward Mexico City, at a low altitude, at a slow speed, with the landing gear deployed, and the rear stairs partially lowered. These were strange requests. Commercial planes weren't designed to fly like that, but Cooper knew exactly what he was doing. Investigators would later realize he had knowledge of aircraft systems. This wasn't random. As the crew prepared for departure, Cooper sat quietly in his seat. He put on dark sunglasses. He tied the money bags together. He tested the parachutes. He even asked for more bourbon. No panic. No rush, just patience. One of the flight attendants later said he seemed completely relaxed, almost professional. He thanked her. He told her to take care. Then he asked her to go to the cockpit. That was the last time she ever saw him. The plane took off again at 7:40 p.m. Outside, it was pitch black. Heavy rain, strong winds, freezing temperatures. They were flying over dense forests and mountains. Below them, miles of wilderness. The cockpit crew felt the aircraft suddenly shift. The pressure changed. A warning light flashed. They knew immediately. Cooper had opened the rear stairs. Moments later, another jolt. The plane lifted slightly. Like weight had just left it. He was gone. No one saw him jump. No one heard a scream. No final message, just silence. At approximately 8:13 p.m., D.B. Cooper vanished into the night, somewhere over Washington state. He jumped from a commercial jet at 10,000 feet, in a storm, with $200,000 tied to his body. Sounded impossible, but it had just happened. The plane landed safely later that night. FBI agents stormed on board. They searched every inch of the cabin. Cooper's seat was empty. His tie was left behind. 2 parachutes were gone. So was the money. Outside, helicopters and ground teams began searching immediately. The largest manhunt in FBI history had begun. Hundreds of soldiers were deployed. Search dogs tracked muddy trails. Helicopters scanned forests. Divers checked rivers. For weeks, they searched mountains, trees, and remote valleys. They found nothing. No body, no parachute, no briefcase, not even a single bill. It was as if Cooper had vanished into thin air. By the next morning, the FBI had turned the Pacific Northwest into a grid. More than 800 soldiers joined the search. Helicopters flew over forests. Teams walked riverbanks. Divers entered freezing waters. Every trail, every clearing, every mountain slope was checked. They focused on a remote area in Washington state, believed to be Cooper's landing zone, but the terrain was brutal. Thick trees, deep ravines, fast-moving rivers. If Cooper survived the jump, he had landed in one of the most unforgiving landscapes in America. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Nothing, no parachute, no footprints, no sign of a crash landing. The man who jumped from the sky had completely disappeared. Inside the plane, investigators found almost nothing, but Cooper had made one mistake. He left behind his black clip-on tie. At the time, DNA technology didn't exist. So the tie was placed into evidence storage and forgotten for decades. But years later, when modern forensic science became available, the FBI tested it. What they discovered was remarkable. Microscopic particles were embedded in the fabric. Rare metals, titanium, industrial materials. These weren't common substances. They were usually found in advanced manufacturing environments, aerospace plants, chemical facilities, high-tech factories. This suggested Cooper may have worked in a specialized technical field. He wasn't just a random criminal. He likely had professional experience with machinery or engineering. Flight attendants gave detailed descriptions. Cooper was in his mid-40s, about 5 feet 10, around 170 pounds, brown eyes, dark hair, well-spoken, polite, not nervous, not aggressive. He didn't fit the stereotype of a hijacker. No shouting, no threats, just quiet confidence. One attendant later said, "He didn't seem dangerous. He seemed organized." For 9 years, there were 0 leads. Then in 1980, a young boy digging in the sand along the Columbia River made a strange discovery. He uncovered 3 bundles of decaying cash. The serial numbers matched Cooper's ransom money, nearly $6,000, buried beneath the riverbank. Was the first and only physical trace of Cooper ever found outside the plane. But it raised more questions than answers. Did Cooper lose the money? Did he die? Did someone else bury it? The river currents didn't explain the location. The bills weren't scattered. They were neatly grouped. To this day, no one knows how they got there. With no remains, no parachute, and no confirmed sightings, the FBI faced an impossible problem. If Cooper survived, he blended back into society. If he died, nature erased every trace. Either way, he had beaten the system. The investigation would continue for decades. Hundreds of suspects, thousands of tips, but no arrests, no identity, no closure. The FBI immediately took control of the scene. Agents swarmed the aircraft. They photographed every seat. They dusted for fingerprints. They collected cigarette butts, cups, napkins. Anything he might have touched. They found his black tie. They found 8 cigarette filters. They found traces of skin cells. But Cooper himself, nothing. No footprints, no parachute, no body. Just cold air rushing through the open rear stairs. Investigators estimated that Cooper jumped around 8:13 p.m. The plane was flying at roughly 10,000 feet, moving at about 170 knots, over dense forests near the Washington-Oregon border. It was raining. It was freezing. Visibility was almost zero. Below him the mountains, rivers, trees thicker than walls. This was not a friendly landing zone. Most experts believed one thing immediately: there was no way he survived. But the problem: no remains were ever found, not even close. The FBI launched one of the largest manhunts in U.S. history. They called it Operation Noriak, short for Northwest Hijacking. Hundreds of agents, military helicopters, search teams on foot. They combed through forests, rivers, cliffs, and valleys for weeks, then months, then years. Nothing. No parachute, no briefcase, no cash. Was like he evaporated. As the years passed, theories exploded. Some believed Cooper was a former paratrooper. Others said CIA. Others thought military special forces. He knew aviation terminology. He knew the 727 had rear stairs. He knew the exact speed and altitude needed. These weren't random guesses. He planned this carefully, quietly, like someone who had done dangerous operations before. Yet others argued the opposite. He chose the wrong parachute. He jumped into brutal terrain. He wore loafers and a business suit. Maybe he was just a desperate man who got lucky once and paid for it with his life. Over the decades, the FBI investigated more than 800 suspects: former soldiers, skydivers, criminals, ordinary men whose families suddenly remembered strange behavior in 1971. One man allegedly confessed on his deathbed. Another matched the composite sketch almost perfectly. Another had unexplained cash after the hijacking. Every lead collapsed. Every trail went cold. No DNA match. No definitive proof. Nothing that could survive in court. In 2016, after 45 years, the FBI officially suspended active investigation, not because it was solved, but because they had exhausted everything. Still, D.B. Cooper remains the only unsolved skyjacking in American history. No confirmed identity, no confirmed fate, just a man who walked onto a plane with a briefcase and stepped into legend. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of history's greatest mysteries, don't forget to like this video. It really helps the channel grow. And if you love stories like this, real mysteries, unexplained cases, and moments where reality feels stranger than fiction, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. More stories are coming, and trust me, some of them are even stranger than this one. See you in the next mystery.